Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sportfolio Productions. My name is Ashish, and we have a very interesting conversation coming up today. We've got Sandeep Menon with us. He's a journalist who has spent years documenting the football culture in India. He was very kind and generous to give us his time and insights for Traveler's Guide to Indian Football. But he's also an author who has been capturing Indian football since a very long time. He's written two books. His first one was about Bengaluru FC, and his latest book is called Sacred Grounds. It's about regional football cultures in India. And I ordered it a few days back. I noticed that it's a number one bestseller on Amazon India. Kudos and congratulations to you, Sandeep. Thank you so much for giving us your time again.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure, guys. Of course, it's always nice to talk about football also, especially in times like this, no? Some good conversation about football.
Yeah, 100%. We've also got Johnson Kanjuthingal with us. He's the creator and the executive producer of Traveler's Guide to Indian Football. I've known him for a couple years now. He's a sports media professional with more than a decade of experience working with all the big names in the global football ecosystem. And TGIF is, well, his baby of sorts. He believes that Indian football deserves to be documented through people, places, culture instead of highlights and like the noisy headlines. Pretty similar the thought process, I think, between the two of you guys. So I'm glad we get to have this conversation with the both of you together.
Perfect, perfect. In fact, I think the first time I like got in touch with Sandeep, and I told him about the idea of TGI. I think the immediate response was basically so positive that even throughout the production of season one, apart from the interview also, the number of times I've gone back to Sandeep and basically asked him, hey, can you connect me to person X? Hey, can you connect me to person Y? So yeah, just massive gratitude towards Sandeep, not just for the amazing work he's done in Indian football in the past. In fact, I have a small anecdote. So your book, Sandeep, on Bengaluru FC is
Yeah.
something that I referred to when we were making the a short film on Bengaluru FC, but for the ISL back in when we were working, when Arjun and I were working for the agency we were working on before. And I think the story that you recall about the days before the first game of Bengaluru FC, where people were out trying to invite
Yeah.
people to the ground to BFS,
Yeah.
basically saying literally in person. So that was something that we got a chance to sort of get Sunil and the rest of the guys at JSW to talk about. And that was something I
Yeah.
remember reading in your book and going yes, this is a question we should ask. So right from there to TGIF and basically the interview that and the time that you took sort of just talk to you about Indian football in general. I haven't ordered Sacred Grounds yet. I my copy is waiting at home for me. I'll be back in a couple of weeks and get my hands on it. But yeah, just thank you so much for the time on the season and for the time today. Super excited to hear basically uh, everything that you've been observing and basically documenting about Indian football, and just more about your next projects and more.
Yeah, I just have to say the same because I first time you reached out, Johnson, your text was Suki sir gave me your number and he said I'm doing something and you talk to him, he'll give you some details. I was actually in Mizoram in some very quaint cafe having some lunch in the afternoon. It was cold and sort of uh, also Mizoram it quickly becomes very foggy. So
Yeah.
my driver is like, just stay here for a while until the rain goes away or something. And then I was like, oh, I had so much time. I think we immediately got on a call, and then it was just
Yeah.
a matter of figuring out what to do. And Indian football is such a fascinating place, and so little has been written on, and especially from a visual medium done for it. So anything that I could help in terms of getting the word out there. Otherwise we are just screaming into the void, right? We need more
Yeah.
people to listen. So whatever was possible, and congratulations and kudos for the first season. It was a great
Thank you.
watch.
Thank you so much. In fact,
And
Ashish,
I just have to say, right, you had all through the production, I was in touch with you on and off, and the effort that you put in trying to get this on some, OTT platforms and all that. I think in the end, maybe YouTube was a great place for it to land, uh, and hopefully, more power to you and a lot more to come. I hope. Huh?
yeah,
For
thank you so
sure.
much. Like honestly, I think as and when 2025 kept progressing, and like the reality of Indian football and like the ecosystem sort of started just revealing itself. Arjun and I like had to have like a pretty sort of serious conversation about, okay, what are we actually doing? Like, have we do we wait for it or not? And thankful to all the partners and investors like of portfolio who were just like, what, we've made something, let's just publish it because people need to see it. And in a season like this where there's nothing else, we might as well sort of publish this and see where we go from there. A little anecdote, Ashish, is that almost, I think, till 2 days before we, or rather, I ended up in Sikkim, and I met
Hmm.
Arjun actually in Sikkim. Uh, Sandeep was actually going to be with us like throughout the Sikkim shoot.
Ah.
Um, he was, I think, about 2 days away.
I was in Calcutta, and I was planning to, for the book itself,
Yeah,
take a train to Siliguri. I had booked the tickets to Siliguri, and then from there I was going to drive up. And you said because of the rain, the roads were really, really bad,
yeah,
and it took you 6 hours or something.
yeah.
And then 2 days before I was supposed to leave from Calcutta, I hurt my back. And I was like, oh, if I take this trip, I'll have be bedridden for either my entire time in Sikkim or once I get back. Like I could take painkillers and get through Sikkim. And there were two times my family intervened in my adventures. One was this when they are like, no, just book a ticket back and then come right back because you are messed up over there and nobody is there to help you. The other one was I had gone to Manipur long time before all the problems started there, and I was trying to go back again for the book. Every time like sort of get that thing through my wife and all of them. Then last minute, my mother and father was like, no. So then I was like, okay, I'll go to Nagaland, I'll drive to Ukrul, and then I'll come. No. So two times they intervened. I was still happy that I was able to do justice to the as much as I could to Manipur chapter, but I would have loved to go one more time. And Sikkim was one place that I missed out in the book. If I had more money and more time, maybe I would have added. But maybe second edition or the next book, we can look at a lot
Yeah.
more into that.
In fact, like I feel like there's a good chance that we go back to Sikkim too. So I think in the last time we had a chat, like last week, Arjun asked a question like, would we go back to the places like that we visited already? And we already had a very interesting comment that yeah, you did Sikkim, that's great, but outside of the ones that you the legends and like basically the culture that you covered, there's so much more. Starting from the first player from Sikkim, like someone like you very pertinently asked me also about like, did you get a chance to speak to him? So
Yeah,
like right from there all the way to the aspects of like football that we didn't manage to cover, just like you said, like within what was possible in season one we did, but we hope to get back. And I think even like beyond Sikkim, something that I think Ashish will probably be able to elaborate more on is like we hope that next season, like apart from obviously the interviews that we did with you guys, like you and like the other journalists, we also get to go and like experience football in these places, especially a place like Mizoram. Like I very
oh
fondly
yeah,
remember, Ashish, like my first conversation with Sandeep was about him telling me about like just local football games in Mizoram where there
Hmm.
were people who were representatives of constituencies just coming and
yeah,
watching their villages play. And it's like a very distinct memory in my first conversation with
yeah.
you, because I was like, man, like that is something we have to go and like experience for us. Yeah. So I hope that we get a chance to do it together.
A lot
Absolutely.
to
I'm planning
do
to
in
go back
season
again, so
two.
let's do it.
Probably go back together.
Yeah, yeah.
On that note, if you haven't watched Traveler's Guide to Indian Football, it's streaming for free on Sportfolio Productions YouTube channel. And you should also order Sacred Grounds, Sandeep's book. I am looking forward to reading it very, very soon. And I want to dial the conversation a little back to your current relationship with Indian football, today's time, Sandeep.
Yeah. Uh, it's hard to say, yeah? But a lot of the things that I got in my life is because of Indian football. So I definitely love it. Uh, but this journey, the last 4 years, 5 years that I took to write the two books, especially the second one, just made me fall in love with it all over again. Like I know on the surface it is all like, doom and gloom. The league is not happening, or the league is now happening. Truncated league, player power, AIF, blah, 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 blah. But still, at the ground, the pure love for football is so unbelievable. Like now, I have reached a point where I would much rather watch these local games, sevens football or the village games or the Basti games in Meghalaya and all that kind of stuff, because just it's so pure, right? They're just playing to representing their people, their locality, their village, whatever it is. Not much money involved. They're just doing it for the pride, and the people who come to support it is often it's like free entry or maybe 100 rupees or 50 rupees or something like that. So a lot of people come in, and it's amazing. Like I can tell you a small story which is not been covered by the mainstream media so much. The Dr. Tiago tournament, inter-district tournament in Nagaland. That's about different districts that happened. Finished, I
Yeah.
think, 2 3 months ago. The winner this time was Mon district, where the Konyak tribes live, and it's at the far end. Okay, it's like a bordering district, and the for them this is a huge thing. They have never won it before, so they won it, and they were so happy about it that the whole district, the government announced a holiday, and they were celebrating it. And it's a
Wow.
little bit of a region that is underdeveloped, and because it's far away and stuff like that, it's a little not much importance was given. But this is a way of finding representation for themselves, right? Look, we are here. Through football, we are showing how good we are. And the coach there was sending me videos of people just watching, in the sheds on the field on their phone. They stopped their work and they're watching the. And this is a inter-district tournament. So phenomenal, right? That kind of love. I love that. I love all those. So I hope that the ISL, I League, I League Two, Three, IWL, all of them are able to capture our attention, people's attention like that. And it's also why we discussed the name for the book to be Sacred Grounds. Because for me, the ground is sacred, right? It's what the
Hmm.
lifeblood is for the people, and it gives meaning for these contests, shaping dreams and destiny and money and success and identity. All of these things are there that comes from this ground. Of course, it's romanticized because politics and reality of football is also there. But still, I would much rather live in a little bit of whimsy when we talk about football. So this is my current relationship. I love the fact that I'm getting all these random small things coming from here and there.
Beautiful to hear that, man. I mean, football really is a religion for a lot of people. And I think Sacred Grounds, the name is really well thought of. Um, Johnson, what about you? Bhai, how do you see Indian football in today's time?
I think, to be very honest, like it's quite similar to like just what Sandeep described. I think 2 years ago, like we decided that okay, let's give this a shot. When we started, I've spoken before, like it was that let's make a pilot. Let's try and see what we can do. We made one, or rather, we tried to make one, and we realized that like the stories are so much deeper. And I think just like Sandeep, like exactly how you mentioned, like the top division, or rather the top two divisions of Indian football, it's just like the surface level of what actually football means to people in this country. and I think that was instantly sort of visible to us. And I think on a more deeper level, for the last 5 years of our lives, like Arjun and my careers specifically, we've been making content for international sort of clubs and rights holders, which is great. Like we continue to do that, but I think there was like a niche, within me, that we need to apply this to basically stories that are around the places that we grew up in, and especially if we can sort of bring this kind of storytelling to these stories, because they deserve to be told. I think the fact that Sandeep just gave like an etymology of sort of sacred grounds, that was something that we were very fortunate to witness, that despite everything that is going wrong in Indian football, I mean, kids are still playing, people are still playing, like communities are still coming together and playing football at their own local level, despite whatever else is happening in the ecosystem. And I feel like very grateful I'm very grateful that we as a crew got an opportunity to witness and sort of create that. And I think from a wider perspective, it's kind of like doing your part while you're waiting for the decision makers to sort of make the right decisions or other calls to organize the sport. I think Sandeep exactly with his book is exactly the representation of what the point I'm trying to make, which is as fans or as people in the Indian football ecosystem, the least we can do is basically exercise our skill and try to further or rather make a contribution to the culture. I think the book is a very fine example. TGIF again, as a series, is an example of that. That okay, this is our contribution to it. Whatever else happens isn't in our control, but at least we've tried to document some amount of culture. And I really love the when I first heard the title, when you basically announced the book, I knew that you were writing. I think we spoke while you were writing about a few stories
Yeah.
that you were working on. I didn't know the title then. When I heard Sacred Grounds, I was just like, man, I completely relate to that, because I think we released a reel on the Mothers FC story that we found in Sikkim a couple of days ago, and that is the perfect representation of what you said, because uh, no matter everything else that happens in the ecosystem of football, that ground where you enter and you're competing for whatever given amount of time, it is very sacred to the love that you have for the sport and the place the sport holds in society. So yeah, just uh, in a time where everything else seems like it's going wrong, I feel very grateful to Indian football that we can make a contribution. Of course, as a fan, you're hoping for so much more. Uh, but on a personal level, I think just like Sandeep, uh, quite grateful to be able to experience that as an entire team.
Sandeep, can you tell us a little bit about your experience filming for TGIF and anything after watching the series, anything that you thought we could have done a little differently?
Yeah, filming on TGIF was very interesting, right? Because you guys came to my house to record. I think you had already finished talking to Sharda and Debain.
Yeah.
And what you see, Anirudh sitting and talking, is in my house. It's just a different angle. So, they finished my section and then they interviewed Anirudh also. So it was good. I think a lot of the things that I spoke to are in, I guess, the next
Yeah.
iteration, because we are talking about a lot of other regions and things. I don't know an awful lot about Kashmir to speak with any sort of authority. So I requested that I don't speak about Kashmir because I don't want to give incomplete information. But yeah, that was good fun. The guys who came here, I think one guy just flew in from Bombay, and
Yeah,
he was
Devang.
so taken. Yeah, he was so taken aback. He's like, "Guys, there is trees everywhere." Now you're seeing. So yeah, and as far as watching, right? I think I sent a couple of texts and few feedback that I got to Jonathan in terms of some narrative bits, which my sister and people like who were already in marketing and uh, editing, and my brother-in-law was working for a newspaper as a production head and all that stuff. So they had some technical ones which I obviously didn't notice, which I've shared with him. And other than that, I thought, this is some documentaries like this is something that India needs, uh, because I can write books, and of course, a lot of people have written articles and all. Like books allow me to write with a lot more nuance and length and all. But there's something very visceral about actually seeing things. Right? Even if it's like a 5 second clip of mothers playing that football game, or if somebody just screaming from the stands, right? It's something that is very visceral. And that really helps to attract people into watching football and allowing them to understand. Like I shared it with a lot of my friends who all know that I am working on the book and I've written books and I speak about this and all. They never really cared. That's how friends are, right? They're like, we'll buy your book because you wrote it. I'm not going to read it. But that was their attitude. But they saw the, I think the Calcutta episode, the first one that you put
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
and was absolutely taken aback. They were telling me like, I did not know that this kind of craze existed, and I did not know this. When you're talking about the fish derby and all that kind of stuff, they're like, oh, this is this level of details. So that part I thought was very interesting. It's like a great gateway for people to know how fundamental football is in a place like India, where it's easy for us to think it's a cricket country, but it's really not. There is, I think, there is a village in Jalandhar side where they have produced 15, 16 hockey Olympians. Just
Mm.
one section, Sansarpur maybe it's called.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. So you have these pockets that are crazy, right? Hyderabad and Bangalore, Kerala love badminton also. Kerala loves volleyball.
Mm.
Uh, Tamil Nadu is phenomenal sporting culture. They pretty much do everything. But people may not know this. But so it's nice that you guys are coming up and writing and sorry, showing people with visuals. And there is a fair bit of overlap between what I've written in Sacred Grounds and what TGIF has shown. Of course, you took three states, which is not in my book, so it's different, but the messaging and the style is pretty similar. And I would like to request, the ideal thing would be to say you watch TGIF and then you read the book,
Yep.
because then you get the taste of what you are into, and then it's like music and lyrics. I'll steal from that movie where they are saying music is the one that brings people to the table. It makes them move, it makes them feel a certain way, it drives certain emotions and decision making and all that, but then you fall in love because of the lyrics. So it's the same way, like fundamentally you need that two things to come together. So watch TGIF first and then read the book.
I completely agree with that. I think, just to add to what Sandeep said, I think like what we've shown, in season one, I think with the visual medium, and I think like Sandeep will probably understand, like there's a limitation to what we can show and the depth of what we can showcase. So there's always a question that our director will ask, that okay, why is this 30 seconds, why is this a minute, and what is the reason for it to be in 30-35 minute sort of story that we're trying to narrate. And I think that internal questioning ends up cutting or stripping away a lot of aspects that are actually very beautiful and interesting. But because it's a visual medium, and because it's supposed to keep the viewer hooked in this low attention span era, there's a lot that we actually can't showcase. I think a very fine question was the stories that we missed out in Bengal, or in Sikkim. In fact, we did Hyderabad. I think Hyderabad was an episode that Ashish was on ground for 2 weeks. But we couldn't really pay specific focus to Naeem Saab's sort of contribution to Indian football from Hyderabad. We got an opportunity to pay tribute to Rahim Saab, to Yusuf Khan, to the other players, to Shabir Ali specifically. So while we could pay respect to all these legends and Shabir sir, and what he's currently doing, in a 30-35 minute episode, we couldn't be able to tell the entire story as as we would love to tell. But I think the book, and what I'm really looking forward to reading is the fact that there are so many stories that, like, I remember you telling me about, like, bits and pieces here and there, watching, like, the interview that you gave us about stories of football in Nagaland, and, like, the
Yeah.
sort of importance it has in society in Nagaland, about, like, football in Manipur, that, like, is just, like, fascinating to read. So, like, I completely agree with you. I think, like, if you like what you watched with TGIF, like, you should read Sacred Grounds. If you like what you read with Sacred Grounds, you should watch TGIF, because, like, the overlap is, like, is in sync, because, like, we're trying to paint a picture that is the same picture, and, like, it is the picture of Indian football. The mediums are different, and like, the fact that there is more conversation in Indian football is only a benefit. And I think my question, I think, to you would be just that, like, we are currently at a point in time in Indian football where there is no league happening. I mean, the league's supposed to happen pretty soon, which is great. Like, we football will be back. But while this is all happening, the last 2 months has actually put Indian football in quite a lot of media spotlight. Whether that is the Messi, like tour that happened,
Yeah.
or whether that is, like, the Real Kashmir web series that released. I think from a, like, just an Indian football fan perspective, I was very glad that there is conversation around Indian football, even though maybe it's not actually contributing to the space, but at least, like, it's being spoken about. How do you see it? Like, just in terms of like everything that's happened in transpired in the last 2.5, 3 months, especially, like, the exact, like, time space or time span within which you released your book, and, like, you've been basically speaking to a lot of people about, like, the stories that you covered while all of this is happening.
I didn't get the exact question. Could you just?
Yeah, so no, just I just wanted to understand, like, from your perspective, like in the last 2.5 months, while all the Messi Go tour, like, the ISL, like, impasse, and of course, like, the Real Kashmir web series that's gone out
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
like Sony Live. Like, while this conversation and like, sort of engagement on Indian football has increased, even though it may not actually be contributing to what Indian football actually is, in like, on a micro level, this is the same time span within which you were releasing your book. You were having
Yeah, yeah.
conversations with people about, like, the experiences that you actually went and physically experienced yourself. So how do you look at it from an author's lens, while, like, the conversation about Indian football probably has, like, peaked in the last 2 months, even though it's not actually, like, about, like, the Indian football that you went and experienced yourself.
Yeah, it's a very tough thing to say because in the beginning, when the whole drama started to sort of fall apart, and honestly, we knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Uh, this was in the works for at least a year. When they didn't start negotiating properly a year ago, I was like, okay, this is going to come to a head at some point. And we are hearing rumors about what this side is saying, not rumors, inside information about what one side is saying to the other side and so on. So when I was releasing the book, I was like, "Oh, what a horrible time to release the book when everybody hates what is happening in Indian football." That's what my sister was saying. She's like, "Oh my God, what a time to come up with this book." But then I was also thinking, you know what? This is also a great time to remind people what football is all about, uh, what uh, what is actually out there for people to see, and I thought that was an opportunity, and it came at the same time. My book released and your episode started
Hmm.
came out on the same time.
Hmm.
So it was, and I think Rail Kashmir's thing came soon after. I haven't yet
Yeah.
watched it. I have to start watching it. Haven't had the time. But it was great for me. I was like, okay, now we have positive stories, telling people what football is all about. Like, yes, the federation is messing up. Yes, they are not doing a good job. Yes, the professional top level of football is struggling, but football will survive because people love the game. And I've always argued that India is such a big country. You don't need the entire country to play football to have a good team.
Yeah.
Every time we're trying to say, oh, spread football, spread football. What if you now go do the opposite? Go to places where football is loved, develop football there, get your players out, let them perform at the international stage. If India started doing well in international stage, football will develop all over. Like the Pune and Bangalore and Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and all these places, there people are playing football. It's just a matter of getting them interested in doing this as a full-time professional and all that. And Bangalore is doing it, right? After BFC came, it was like a shot in the arm, and now you see multiple players are there in different ISL teams and all that. They're starting to develop. The I League has a team, IWL has teams. So all it needs is someone to do something so that the rest will follow. And the documentary that you made, my book and all talks about like Baichung Bhutia, right? You interviewed him. There was a huge angle about it. So there, in my book also, there is an angle about local heroes, the impact that they have, which is exactly like Shabir Ali is a local hero. You can n number of people in Bengal. So you can pick and choose whatever you want to tell them. Like, look, this guy made it, and now all of us can make it. Like he's proving that I've made it. Now everybody will come behind. So I was really happy that we were able to show some good sides, and this was a necessary course correction, I think, for Indian football at large. uh, I don't know what the fallout is going to be. You can do a league this year. Where is the sponsor coming from? I don't know. They might end up getting someone. Uh, but either way, it's time for us to rethink how we do our top leagues and make it matter for people, because this will be the fourth version, or at least the 3B
Yeah.
version of the National League that we are doing. So we don't seem to be learning. That's the sad part.
Yeah.
And the people who
I
love football are doing a lot of work at the
Yeah.
bottom level, and you would have seen it. I saw it. People will never get mentioned at the top level or in the media and all that, but they love the game, so they're doing it, and along with they continue to do it, and hopefully we learn this time.
I don't see even right now like a long-term solution or a long-term plan from the governance, which is really sad. But Sandeep, you spoke about local heroes and players being developed right from scratch, going playing professionally. Is there any one story or one player that you have personally seen that has grown from scratch, from grassroots, went on to play professionally, inspired a lot of people?
So I would not have followed a lot of their careers because of the book and everything. But I can give you some interesting ones. One that is very personal to me, which may not mean a lot for a lot of people, is Leon Agustin. Uh, he is
Yeah.
played for BFC for a while now. He's in Punjab. Why I follow his career is his father Ashokan is a very famous footballer in Calicut. So sevens hero in sevens, he's played Santosh Trophy and all that kind of like very big name. Anybody who knows football in Calicut knows Ashokan. They lived maybe 5 minutes from my house, and Leon has played in the same grounds that I played in when I was a kid. The PVS grounds and the school grounds and all that kind of stuff. But 10, 12 years after I did. So when I met him and spoke to him, we have people who I played continue to play there even now. So we have some common contacts. I as this Anish, and he'll be like, Anish, and I know him. So for I saw him come from that, and for him to make it as a professional. Now they've moved on. He's built a new house in a different part of the city, which I visited when I went to talk to Ashokan sir. So I loved that. Of course, I would love for him to go even higher and higher. But even the fact that he's played well for Round Glass, he's been here for a while. It just feels nice because he's from my neighborhood, and Calicut has had bigger players, who did great job, But for me personally, it feels great. The other one is like I loved Eugene Lindo. He is a great guy. Uh, his is a career that is purely driven by passion.
Yeah.
He went for, it didn't have to, he was studying engineering. We used to laugh about it. Like he studied engineering. I was also an engineer. We were talking about our back papers and so on. But he went on to have this. phenomenal career. Right? By the time Eugene became like a proper professional, he was already 28. So he only had a short window. But in
Yeah.
that time, he was probably the best player in India at that time
Yep.
with Sunil for that 2 3 years in Bangalore. Like unbelievable player. And what he has gone on to do after that, setting up the Randijaya as it is now, and they're trying to get into the I League, they're getting into women's game and everything. Impact he's had because Chesterfield, though a lot of these guys who came after him look up to Eugene
Yeah.
as the guy who showed them the way. But Meghalaya has had a history that dates beyond Eugene,
Hmm.
or before Eugene, but he's had this huge impact because the levels that he got in is very high. I think in the book also I found Mama Shiloh Masram Tlanga
Mhm.
from Mizoram.
Shiloh
Huge
Mama.
star.
Yes.
Yeah, Shiloh, great guy. Like what a lovely guy. But beyond that, what he has done, right? Like to go from Mizoram, which at that time was not a place that many people knew. He went from Mizoram, got picked up to TFA from Suprato Cup tournament. He went to TFA, signed for a Calcutta Giant. And I remember, I think the first check he got was like some 1 lakh or 1.5 lakh or something. He didn't really know what to do. So he put it in a Bible. Because he's that guy. Like he was from this place, he didn't speak Hindi properly, he knew English and speak, communication was difficult. But for him, but he was thinking, like, I have to make it and I'm going to make it. A lot of people suggested, why don't you go to a smaller club and then work your way up? But he was like, no, I'm going to the big team. And then for him to go and play for the national team. And once Mama showed the way, there was a few other factors that helped. TFA was there. There was Air India was recruiting players from there, and the northeast side. Suddenly, northeast was an avenue that was not explored. And following Mama, Lal Rindika Ralte was there.
Yes. Yeah. Left feet.
Rindika is from Rindika is from Lunglai, which is where Mama was also from. So Rindika was telling me he saw Mama in a Boomer ad, and he was like, "Huh, he's a star. I also want to be a star." And then now you have JJ, who's come from Natyal,
Yeah.
which Natyal is a recently developed district, but he was also from that side. Properly from, like, he didn't go to TFA or anything. He was coming through the ranks in Mizoram before he went to Pune. So now you have like a generation of players. Uh, Chante is a star now, but in between you had many of them, right? Daniel came,
Yeah.
a lot of these other people came from here and there. So you have these stories that people have such impact, and also stories of people who should have made impact but didn't. Like everybody might think Mama is the first, but there was a goalkeeper called K. Kola who played for the national team, I think in 60s or 70s. Uh, but so if you go to the Lamuel ground, one of the stands is K. Kaula stand. But his impact was less because the society at that time was different. They
Mm-hmm.
were going through a lot of problems, in terms of this insurgency, and until Mizoram Peace Accord was signed in the late 80s or mid 80s, there was no space for all these things. Football was happening, but it was sort of a remote area. There are stories of the letters from AIFF arriving, requesting certain people to come, but the letter arrived too late, or these guys couldn't find the transport in time. So now they have an airport. So all of that helped. There were a bunch of others in between who came right after Mama. There was like 3 4 players in the junior team and all that kind of stuff. So it's fascinating to see what triggers the next move. If K. Kola had been, the situation was different. We would have had players from Mizoram from the 70s, flooding
Yeah.
the entire national team. Similarly, you had Dr. Tiao was the first ever
Yeah.
captain for our national team. Independent India, captained India at the Olympics and so on. He is from Nagaland, Mokokchung district in Nagaland. But the reason why I was fascinated about Nagaland is I wanted to know why they don't produce players. Although they love football, you see the numbers on YouTube and stuff. It's crazy. And there was a story about Wati Ayer also. Maybe we can talk about it later. But when he played for the national team, there was no real communication to Nagaland. One of the people I spoke to, he said, we knew he played, but we didn't really know much about it. We didn't know much about Mohan Bagan or what was happening. Newspaper would arrive maybe a week late, if at all. So when he came back, he was a doctor.
Hmm.
And again, he was like, knew he played, but now he's back as a doctor. And there was all the social unrest going in Nagaland also. So Mama's timing was great because it was a time after all the problems had been sort of resolved. These guys missed their, the timing was different. So it's absolutely fascinating to see uh, how careers and how legacies are created, how legacies are forgotten also. I can tell one more. I don't want to give my whole book away. There is also someone like Appa Rao, who is phenomenal in terms of what a player that he was. Played in the 50s.
Mhm.
So if you go, East Bengal put a tweet out, I think, a couple of years ago about the number of players they have from Tamil Nadu.
Hmm.
And Apara was the first player. 1950s, they had a Panchabandavas at that time, which was
Yeah.
Apparao, Venkatesh, Danraj, Saleh, and Ahmad Khan. So I think three from Karnataka, one from Kerala, and Apparao. He was a senior guy. So if you go to Calcutta, they love Apparao. But I was in Tamil Nadu and I was like, what do you think of Apparao? When you're asking about old players, they talk about Simon Sundaraj or Kittu and all these people. They're like, we don't know. And so I was like, how can this happen? So I tried to reach out to people in
Hmm.
Telangana Association as well as Andhra Association. They also really didn't know much. Ex-players sort of had a name is there somewhere.
Hmm.
Association people told me about a different Appara who played for services or railways or something. So I was like, that's not the guy. So I'm like, how did this guy who was so famous in in Bengal not have the same recall value in the south where he's from? So I ended up somehow doing some jugad and finding his great grandson. He's working
Wow.
in the US. I had to call in some favor with somebody in LinkedIn to get me his
Wow.
email ID and stuff like that. And then he reached back. He's like, "Yeah, I'm so happy that you reached out." Somebody, he is working in the US, and one Bengali chap was there. And when they were talking about each other's lives and getting to know each other, he said, "Yeah, my great grandfather or grandfather or somebody was playing, and his name is Apparao." And that guy was floored. "Oh, you are Apparao's, great, lineage. Oh my God, how can you?" And he's like, "I didn't know he was so big." So then you ended up finding the reasons why his legacy was sort of missing. Like there was politics at the time. He didn't play the Olympics for myriad of reasons or the Asian Games at that time. So had he played in these tournaments, maybe his name would carry a lot more
Hmm.
weight. But you have all these characters who sort of fell through the cracks. So you can read and find out what the politics were because I don't exactly remember what I wrote. I don't want to say the wrong things. Uh, but it took a lot of effort to find what happened at that time. So yeah, many great stories, and I'm sure there is a lot more that I can find once I delve into it. But yeah, hopefully the next book, we'll find more.
Yeah. More reason for everyone watching to go and get your copy of Sacred Grounds and also watch Traveler's Guide to Indian Football, because a very similar story from Hyderabad is Rahim Saab. We
Hmm.
got in touch with Rahim Saab's family. We spoke to his two daughters, his grandson, and what we realized is that not a lot of people in Hyderabad are currently aware of the greatness of Rahim Saab. His grandson in the documentary, he says कि कलकत्ता में उनको भगवान का दर्जा दिया जाता है. He's considered like a godly figure in Kolkata, whereas in Hyderabad people have forgotten about him. So yeah, I mean it's always interesting to go back in the history and see how people made their names for themselves in the football ecosystem. Sandeep, I want to ask you, while you were writing your book, is there any region that surprised you the most, or any moment that's close to your heart personally?
Uh, yeah, I mean, generally the love for football in this region was amazing. Like the people are so open-minded. Let's say 85% of the time, to really go out of their way to help. Especially in Northeast, I found tremendous love. Like they would take you from. I had so what I would do is I would schedule meeting ahead of time, and I'll fly in, and then go from okay, I'll have a 10 o'clock meeting here, 12 o'clock meeting here, 4 o'clock here, 6 o'clock there, like that. So you just keep going from one meeting to the next. And these guys are like, I'll take you. It's like, why? I'm like, don't take me. He's like, no, 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 I'll take you. So they'll go, they'll take me to the next one. And that guy's like, "No, I'll take you to the next one." It was, and they were so happy that someone is trying to do something and all that. So love for football and the people in general. Like, Valam Lindo is this guy I met in Shillong. He is Chestapal Lindo's cousin or something. So I just texted Valam saying, "I'm coming. I want to see the Basti game in your village. Can you take me?" Just Paul gave me a number. So we had like two, three text messages. That's it. So I landed in Shillong. He came to meet me in the evening, and he said, "Tomorrow we'll go." Uh, and it's like 3.5 hours away from where in Shillong. It's around Southwest Khasi Hills. Let's go. I'll take you. We are going anywhere. We'll figure it out. So I jumped in the car. As I was in the car, I was like, I don't know him. I don't know where we are going. What are you doing? And for a moment, you have that right in your mind. And then we reached there and we had a good time. We came back. Uh, Now we keep in touch, and I love him like a brother. He's a great guy. He keeps calling, and we keep talking to each other. And he called me to say, "Can you send me Kerala spices for food?" So I'll pack, Kerala. We'll go to Kerala and pick up the spices and send it to him. I'm
Lovely.
looking forward to meeting him, hopefully in March when I go there. So it was amazing, this kind of stuff. Reach and surprise. A couple of things. One was in Nagaland. I didn't really plan to go, although I wanted to know what happened to Tiao and the impact. But I was in Shillong and speaking to Sanjay Hazarika, who's an author who writes about multiple books, former journalist and all. He told me there is this guy called Vati Iyer, who's a reverend, and there was this reconciliation football match that happened in Nagaland long time ago. So then I went to Nagaland to find out more details about it. And so it was like a match between the Nagaland cultural, normal organizations like Naga Vohos and the church and all of them. They played a game against the undergrounds, three underground factions, trying to get peace. So the impact that the fact that they chose to play football as a vehicle towards peace. Of course, peace was not like 100% restored or anything, but it was a move forward. And there was like this very touching story that he said of the people who were the children widows giving a flower to the game, the players who were playing, and they were like these guys. They had they're living in such fear and this kind of situation where you are seeing these people who have suffered actually offer peace. Can we please have peace? And very powerful story. So that was very touching. I'm very happy that I was able to write about it. It is reported, in 2008 in the newspaper and all, but not to this level of detail. The kind of impact and the backstory behind it all. I love the cover because the cover is my friend took it from Goa. The guy on the right extreme of the cover is my friend. So he just there were people playing in the beach, and he just went and started standing next to them. Right? You know how young kids want to go and play, but you don't want to ask. He's just sort of loitering around, and these guys are like, "Come, come, come, let's play." So that kind of camaraderie, right? You know he wants to play, and
Yeah.
more the merrier, right? That was very nice. The one thing that personally meant a lot for me was we went to Tutur in Tamil Nadu. My wife was there with me. She traveled a little bit here and there. So she is one of the reasons why this book happened because she's a PhD scholar, and I was happy being the journalist, right? Like just writing regular things. And then she's like, you read this book about culture, you read this book about social impact, and we would talk to each other, and she would be like, yeah, she'll say something extremely deep, and I'll be like, what the heck? What, not about sport, but generally about people and society, something really deep, and I'll be like, oh, I I need to up my skill, otherwise I'll not be able to survive conversations with her. So it was like, I guess a weird male ego thing, but I'm happy I channeled it in the right way. I started reading books and finding out about society. I read about Kremlin and this and that, and Latin America and all that kind of stuff, just to understand. So when I went, so she is the reason why the whole thought started. Maybe I should write something about culture, because history is covered in certain
Yeah.
parts. The national team and the run is covered. Barefoot boots is a great book.
Hmm.
So those things are done. Let me think about the culture and society and all that. Obviously, Pradyum Reddy and Richard Hood were huge support as well. So we went to Tutur, and so she is a literature scholar. So she reads a lot. So we were talking to people. I was talking to this whole father, a reverend father in the local church, and he was talking about the reflection, what life is like in Tutur, and I was trying to relate it to the way they play football or how they see football and all that stuff. So she came after the thing and said, "Oh, field research is great. I think I want to start doing field research now." So now she is trying to get into field research. So for me personally, that is a huge thing, because she's the reason why I did this. Now I am the reason why she wants to do something else. So I would like to think of it as a uh, people pulling each other up. So personally, for me, that was huge. Sorry, I rambled a lot there.
No, no, that is
No,
so sweet.
love to hear that. I am now looking for. I didn't know about the Nagaland peace wala situation, so I'm really looking forward to read more about that in the book. Coming to the next point, Sandeep, what do you think is a difference between your first book about Bengaluru FC and now Sacred Grounds? How did you approach these two differently?
Oh, so the first book is a lot more narrative, in the sense that there is a story, there's a structure. We are just retelling history,
Hmm.
but telling history with details that people did not know. So there is that. I did some 60, 70 interviews, everybody telling you what happened, and then you have to double check with someone, did this actually happen? And the challenge there was, as with this book also, people will tell you things. I can tell you that this is what I felt, and I am true in telling that. But the reality could be different. Somebody else will tell you, okay, we did that. So I got hurt because on that day this happened. But the other guy will say, we had to do it for this reason. If we got hurt, I'm sorry, but there's a justification to it. So to find the balance, to write in such a way that I am not really villainizing one person or another, that was really hard, but a challenge. But overall, it's the book. When you read, you can read out of the blue very quickly. It's a very easy read, easily written, lots of stories, anecdotes, and it flows. And that was very important for me to write about the impact of the club beyond just the 10 years. What
Hmm.
they did for Bangalore, what they did to the fan culture, the kind of impact they did. Bangalore FC's social media game is top notch.
Yeah.
So the kind of care that went into developing that aesthetics and that sense. So and the rivalries that were spawned and all that stuff. So it was very important for me to do that as well. The second book, a lot more research intensive. I think the last 50 pages or so is notes and bibliography and all. So the number of things that I read and references and so on. So it took 2021 Jan to 2024 November. It took that long for me to finish the research, and uh, I know it ended up the two books came 6 7 months apart. So people thought
Hmm.
I was writing two, but this one took a significantly longer time in terms of
Hmm.
doing research and all. So that part was different, and the narrative flow is not as same and as easy as in Out of the Blue, because
Hmm.
there is no like demarcation between one season to the next season. You're trying to tell people why football took hold. There's history, there is some
Hmm.
culture, there is some anecdotal story. There is a local format of the game. There are small rivalries from here and there. There are like in Kerala, because I'm a Malayali, I guess it's easier for me to get stories from Kerala, just purely from conversation. So, like for example, Iricode is a small place, not small place. It's like a very
Hmm.
important place in Malappuram. And the guys there tell me about the rivalry between Arikod and Terataman, which is two places in the same region separated by a Chaliar river. And they have this rivalry. Oh, we have this many players, so we will, when they play against each other, it's like the derby, local derby. So they have these kind of stories, and one uh, what do you call folklore in Aricode is this. I don't know if you know Olympian Rahman, T.A. Abdul Rahman,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, old player, played in the Melbourne Olympics from
Yeah.
Calicut. He is. So one of the times he went to Aricode to play a game, and for some reason that game got called off. I don't remember now. It's in the book. And they were having a conversation, and this disagreement came, saying, "Oh, Aricode is better than Calicut, or Calicut is better than Aricode." So then they said, "Okay, we'll play a match and we'll decide." So it's like an unofficial thing, right? It's not like a tournament of it.
Hmm.
So on the day the match happened, everybody came. Uh, the whole ID code was shut, and they wanted to see. It's like a pride thing, no? My region versus them. And finally, ID code won, 1-0 or something. They won that game. And the story, I don't now. This part could be, fictional, for the sake of, the storytelling part. That's how they tell the story. They say Olympian Rahman threw his boot into Chalia in anger, and then he walked away. And then he's saying, they still say the stories, songs and stuff, saying അന്ന് റഹ്മാൻ പോയ വഴിയിൽ പുല്ല് മുളച്ചിട്ടില്ല, which basically means the road that Rahman traveled, he trampled on it so much that not even grass has grown, or Rahman never came back to this way. So it's like one of those
Folklore.
folklore that they've gone. So you have to give that due respect in a book, but also tell them that this might not have happened, but this is the way people see it,
Yeah.
and perception is reality. So yeah, it's fascinating experience, both of them, very different ones. uh, I really, I hope I have more such experiences going forward, because it was phenomenal to do this work. Yeah, I mean, there's no money and whatever, that you want, but I don't know. It's just very enjoyable to find all these things. I found some new stuff in
100%.
volleyball, but let's see if I can get something out.
No, 100% agree with you. These cultural stories, even for me, they like it blows my mind how football is seen differently in different parts
Yeah.
of this country. Johnson, do you think there's a difference between telling these cultural stories when you're doing it for yourself versus when you're doing it for a brand or for a league?
I mean, simple answer, big difference. I think, the sort of wider, or rather more comprehensive answer is the fact that when you're telling the story for, a third party, or other, someone else who's actually funding that operation, like, you have to keep the priorities in mind. And I'm sure, like, it's the same, Sandeep, when you're writing for, as a journalist for, like, an organization, like, it's not something that, restricts your creative, interpretation of a story on the surface, but it is something that I think, as a professional, you got to be responsible about. So, for example, when we went to Kodavali in 2020, Arjun and me, there were a lot of things that we saw over there, which we knew, like, right from the off, that this is not going to go on a brand film for the ISL. Like, so, for example, it was 35, $50 a game, the ticket, basically entry ticket, and people were happy to pay that, because, like, the local betting scene was, where basically people were, finding engagement. So, along with obviously supporting your team, there was also, like, something at stake, and it's among friends, right? Like, I mean, if you're going to spend, an evening with your friends, and you're going to spend $200, $50 for a ticket, you're going to put $100 against your friend on who's going to win the game, and, then you're just going to enjoy, like, that atmosphere where there's, unlicensed, food and beverage, vendors, in and around, like, which is just local people. Like, so, like, I remember in Kodavali there was basically a family that was just making, like, snacks, like, on the side of the ground, which was, the refreshment for, the entire audience that was there, and it was a 10 to 12,000, audience that turned up that day. So a lot of these things, we were like, this is, like, fascinating, but we can't show this. Obviously, we can't show all of this. So the biggest difference is that, like, I think when we were creating TGIF, like that sort of that invisible, like, sort of sense of responsibility about, oh, what would actually fit, like, the brand was not there anymore. So when we decided to tell, like, when we decided to make Kolkata, and we were identifying, okay, we have to, like, give the three clubs equal amount of importance, and we want to show one story that is a little unique. I was very passionate about Sanjay Sen's story, because I felt like, that is a story that I want to bring out, like, especially in terms of someone breaking the norm. I mean, you will see tons of, like, documentaries on Kolkata football that would talk about Chuni Goswami, PK Banerjee, Krishan Uday, also for that matter, like, legendary players. But I think Sanjay Sen's story was the one that fascinated me the most, especially, like, because I was, like, a young adult when I saw him basically do the things that he did as a manager. And when you speak to people, right? Like, so when we spoke to Sandeep, when we spoke to Devan about, like, the impact of the title that he won, uh, you then get that validation that, what, no, like, I mean, there is, like, more substance over here, like, to justify that. And the beauty of, I think, doing it for yourself, and I'm sure, like, Sandeep will attest to this, is that if you are convinced about it, like, nobody's going to come and tell you not to do it. So, like, when I went and told Arjun, this is what we should be doing. And then when we got, like, the bites from Sandeep and from Deba, and, like, who were there present, like, for that game, like, Arjun was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. We should be definitely doing this. Add to that, like, Sanjay Da's incredible story about getting banned by the AIFF and people turning up with his mask. I mean, and then it becomes a no-brainer. And the beauty is that because we're doing it for ourselves, I mean, we are just trying to be as true to the story as possible. We are not trying to offend, like, a federation or, like, anybody else. It's a great story. It's about, like, somebody whose story we are interested in. And unlike all the previous occasions before, we don't really need to have, like, that second, third round of approval. If we are convinced about it, we can go about it the way we want to.
And this is, I just was so fascinating, right? Because when you're writing as a journalist, a lot of this is dependent on newsworthiness, and so on and so forth. Like you mentioned, everywhere you would see the great players, as they
Yeah.
said, or Subrata Bhattacharya or Silent Manna, and all
Yeah.
these people who are so well documented. So if you want to show someone like Sanjay Sen, there is no need to tell somebody why I made the decision,
Yeah.
right? Why you made the decision? Because regardless of other people's success, more success, less success, perceived success, this man is successful. He
Yeah.
has won every title. He has all the rights, and and one other thing is, like, lived through a lot of the things that he
Mm.
mentioned, but you forget so many things, like the mask thing people are wearing and all. You forget that because as a journalist, the things are just happening every day.
Hmm.
So only if you talk to them and then suddenly you realize, oh yeah, I remember this happened. Oh, he got fined because he and Ashley Westwood used to have tussle. And when I spoke to Sanjay Da for the first book, BFC book, he was telling me it's just Ashley was tough to deal with in the touchline because he would be shouting and screaming and trying to influence the referee. And he said, I don't like it. I couldn't deal with it. And then he said, but in that game where they won the title with the draw against BFC, he said, I was calm. Somehow that day I was calm. And he's like, if I was agitated, we might not have won. So I wanted to stay calm. So you see this guy who has such great experience, learning from the previous time they played against each other, and he's like, okay, he's going to rile people up. I cannot get dragged into it, and that then translates to the team. I mean, you can say in retrospect, if they hadn't scored the goal, it wouldn't have made a difference. But that's what sport is about, right?
Yeah.
So he was able to translate that calm, and then they went and scored the goal. Like Ashley will say, there was a penalty that was not given, all that kind of stuff, which is also true.
Hmm.
So, but he won. Imagine the pressure on that guy
Yeah.
who, Goans had dominated league for so long, and he's finally bringing the cup back. to Calcutta, and he was so close, and the money is there, and anyway, being a Bagan coach or a East Bengal Mohammedan coach is like pressure, and
Yeah.
now you are under pressure, away from home, desperate to hold on, desperate to. All you need is a draw. Like BFC had to win, right? These guys just had to draw, and
Yeah.
if you lose, they'll be like you couldn't even draw. So all that thing, and he was able to stay calm, and then he did it, and then he subsequently went on to have this great success. You can justify he's a great manager. He's a good
Mm.
manager, and he's got a great story to tell. And you can
And
tell that when
yeah.
you are in control.
And I think like just for context, like I think Sandeep, you'll remember like even when he was appointed, like he wasn't
Yeah.
like this hugely popular choice for Mohan Bagan.
No.
Like they were
No.
going through a very lean spell, and like when he was given the job, he basically like he ended like a trophy drought at Mohammedan,
Mohammedan.
but
Yeah.
he didn't like leave Mohammedan on the best of terms. So there was still skepticism about him. Like he's not somebody who played for any of the three big teams. He was successful at United Sports Club. He was successful at Mohammedan, but there were big questions around him. So giving him the job of arguably the biggest club, like in India in terms of like an institution, like at that point in time, like that was already like like it's like that the poison chalice. Like if you don't like make this work, like you're basically gambling your career with it. And then from then on, like you mentioned, I think the significance of that Bengaluru game was exactly like you said. Like he just had to not lose away from home, and like doing that like at the BFS at that time was no like easy task, especially with the players that like I think the unit that BFC had created at that time. I remember Sonny Node, like for Mohan Bagan throughout that season was like a cheat code. Like he was just
Yeah.
like,
And
I mean, just give the ball to
they
Sonny.
had Katsumi Usa also. Just be like,
Yeah.
oh, what players?
So yeah, it was just like when we made the like decision that okay, you know what, we need to do this. And when we reached out to Sanjay again, someone who Sandeep only connected us to, like we told him we want to do this. He was also quite surprised. He was like, why? Like like you want to talk to me? It's like cool. We went, we spoke to him, we filmed with him like for a nice couple of hours. And I remember speaking to other people around Kolkata during that shoot, where people were like, "Oh, you guys are doing this. Okay, who else are you speaking to?" And I told them we are speaking to Sanjay. They're like, "Yeah, he's like we love him, but why?" I was like, "Because that's a very interesting story. I mean, we're talking about the three clubs, and then we're talking about one coach who never played for the three clubs, but still, like I mean, if you're talking about present day and active coaches around, he still has like one of the most like successful CVs around." From Kolkata, from Bengal. And after we filmed with him, then he goes on to win the Santosh Trophy with West Bengal, which I was like, okay, this is just validation that like we
Yeah.
made some sort of good decision with this.
One of my favorite lines from the Kolkata episode is Sanjoy Da saying, "यही है कोलकाता का मजा, एक दिन आपको सर पे चढ़ाएंगे और दूसरे दिन," which he refers to like people spitting on him and everything after they
Yeah, yeah,
lost to
yeah.
Chennai, I think. So that just tells you how crazy football is in Kolkata. Sums it up very very beautifully, and it also comes like towards the end of the episode. So it's just poetry, dude. Like talking about Kolkata football, the man who has done so much, won so much, means so much to the people of Kolkata. So yeah, you're definitely one of my favorite lines from the Kolkata episode. Coming back to you, Sandeep, I want to ask you the same question. How different is it when you're writing for yourself versus when you're writing for a publication or like a newspaper? Does it change your mindset or approach a little bit?
Yeah, because like you said, most of the time when you're writing for newspapers, you're often writing for a reason. Some news angle has to be there. Something has happened. That kind of stuff. Very few times you are given sort of a free hand to nostalgia writing or this kind of stuff. So that part is there, and then you are also restricted by word count. One of the things I dislike about online is that discipline is not there. Like we had to, when you are in a newspaper, you have to write in 400, 600 words. That's your limit. And you have to tell the story in that. So it makes you disciplined in terms of using words economically. Sometimes when I read articles online, I'm like, where is this going? You could have written 3,000 words you have written, you could have done it in 1,500 words or less. But just because you can write, people are writing. So that is slightly different. That part slightly digressed, but that part is slightly different. And also, like Johnson also said, like I found interesting things that I wanted to follow. Like Apparao was something that I wanted to follow. If I never wrote about him, nobody would have said anything. But
Hmm.
now you can pull at threads that this seems interesting. You can go down a rabbit hole. Sometimes you find something, sometimes you don't. Then you come back and then you pull at the next thread and see where that goes. So that kind of freedom is great when you're writing like a long form book, or I'm sure the same with making a show. And I'm sure you could have made a whole episode on a lot of these guys uh, alone, like what they have done. And one other thing was we have this tendency, not in newspaper per se, but generally uh, in media, to mark heroes and villains and to
Hmm.
say he's a success and he's a failure. It's very sometimes it's very binary, and world is not like that.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to win. Like one of the things that when you realize you go to Vyasarpadi or you go to Tutur or in Kerala or somewhere, the amount of people who you have never heard of
Hmm.
but are so important to their local history. Like Tutur has produced great players, right? Susairaj and Regin, and many of them have come from there. But there is Cletus, who was the first player to go out of Tutur.
Hmm.
He never made it to the levels of Susairaj. But what he showed them is in Tutur, you can play football and then you can get a job in Chennai. And then Edwin Raj and Jagan Senior, Jagan Junior, all these guys started going, and then it went on and on and on. Now you might not know these players, or Balin Singh in Manipur.
Hmm.
He was with Kiran Kongsai, who was one of the earliest big players who made it for Manipur. Both of them were together, but Balin Singh chose to take a job.
Hmm.
Kiran Kongsai went to Calcutta club and started doing well. But isn't it a success if you can use football to better your life?
Yeah.
That could be education, that could be finding a job, or could be anything. Staying away from social evils, which is something that a lot of people use sport for. Isn't that a success in itself? When this is a question I can pose in a book, but when you are writing
Hmm.
news and you are showing telecast, you need to say, okay, he won or he lost. It's not, there is no I won despite losing kind of
Yeah.
angle. It's very rare. Like,
Hmm.
Eddie the Eagle kind of
Hmm.
thing happens once in a while, Olympic spirit and so on and so forth. But it's very rare. So I was very happy to look into these kind of nuances of sports changing life. Uh, it could be small, but it
Hmm.
changed life. So that one was very different for me, at least. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Final thoughts, reflections on the conversation about Indian football from both of you, Johnson and then Sandeep. Also, a message, Johnson, a message for young filmmakers or like people looking at football cinematography. And from you, Sandeep, a message for young football journalists.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think like just before I just get to the message, I just wanted to sort of pick up on one thing you mentioned because it was so a reminder of a very nostalgic time. You spoke about Eugene and
Mm, yeah.
just his sort of role in Meghalaya, not just in the football scene, but like even beyond. Um, so I when I was I think in 11th or 12th, that's when Eugene was like really sort of taking the league by storm at BFC. And my first job was with FC Pune City, and that's when Eugene was the first 1 crore player. If you remember, like
Yeah.
he was sold before Sunil, and like he went
Yeah.
for. And I remember I was an in social media intern, and the marketing manager at FC Pune City at that time, who was very new to football, asked me oh, who's this player, and is he that good? I was like, listen, like you've signed the best midfielder in India right now, and I'm not even kidding. At that time, like I mean, imagine you're an 18-year-old kid, and and this was fresh after watching BFC get to the AFC Cup final, and Eugene scoring like directly from a corner on the route
Yeah,
to
he
the
did.
goal.
Yeah, yeah. He scored a screamer away at Johor from 30 yard with the left foot, I think.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
And just like, this is a midfielder who, when you look at him, like, if you look at his highlights and all, he's not physically imposing. He's not rapid. He's not like, your classic, like, box to box, like, physical specimen, but technically and just tenaciousness. Like, if you watched Eugene play, like at that time, you would just fall in love with, like, what he's doing on the pitch. I remember I wrote a chant for him at FC Pune City, which was something about 5 foot, like, him being 5'7" and football heaven, which never took off, unfortunately. But like,
It's tough
it
to
was,
take off in Pune football
yeah.
heaven.
But you talking about Eugene just brought back like memories of like this Eugene as a player at BFC. At FC Pune City, he was like, reasonably successful. I remember him scoring a ridiculous header, like, beating somebody who was like a good, like, half a foot, like, taller than him. And that was, I think, one of the best qualities I felt like about him. And like for somebody like, who wasn't the tallest on the pitch, he would somehow just like be very dangerous in the box, in the air. So yeah, just I think you touched a nerve with the Eugene memory, and like it just like sparked like nostalgia about him. But yeah, just to come back to what you said, Ashish, I feel like in 2026, right now, like we are at a point where there is so much of content being created around Indian football, which is great. Like, I like the fact that there's so many YouTubers, there's so many up and coming, like, content creators talking about Indian football. What I would urge people is that if you can create content sitting, like, at home on your desk about Indian football, like, just step out, like, every time you get an opportunity, go watch a local game, whichever part of the country you're in, like, document that, even if it's on a film camera, like, or on your phone camera, like, just like, capture that, like, atmosphere, and like start talking about it, like while showing, keep talking about Indian football while showing Indian football. See, it's like the only way you can like change perception about the football in and around us is like, when, like, you also, like, diversify the media that people are consuming about football. So there is an abundance of people talking about football. There is, like, there are books that are being written about football, like we've created like the docu series. But I would be like the most happiest if a kid from Jamshedpur, like, wakes up, like, in the next couple of months and goes like, you know what, I just want to go and cover my school tournament in Jamshedpur. Like, just like be there, be a part of it, like, put out, like, highlights of like the best goals or something, like do a little bit of commentary over like his experience or her experience of that. And I feel that's what my advice would be to any young aspiring filmmakers, because the idea of creating the documentary series, like, was something that Arjun and I discussed 5 years, like 5.5 years ago. It took a long time to actually get to this point where we actually have something out there. But with access and, like, sort of technology advancing to the point where creating content is a lot more democratic, I feel like going and finding experiences to justify the content or the conversation you're creating about Indian football is the advice I would give to like the already vast majority of, like, content creators that have emerged in Indian football over the last year and a half. Because that is the next step. I feel like, there is a lot of like conversation created, which is great, but there's also a lot of room for people to go out and just hold up a phone and show what Indian football is like.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Over to you, Sandeep.
so I think I'll say two parts, one to the fan and one to the people who work there. Uh, to the people working, responsibility. So I look at journalists and content creators as slightly different, and I want to, like, for a journalist, it is very important to do your research and cover local sport, because that's where you learn, and that's where you create contacts, and that's where you develop everything. So, lot of that time now, there is no time for a journalist to do all this. Like, I was at the tail end of that time when we went and covered. I covered state ranking badminton sub under 13. I've covered local football. You would go to the tennis and watch the local tennis tournament. So you see, that's where you learn how to cover a game. what to look for, who's the next guy coming through. You cover under 13 swimming and you'll see someone who's swimming very well. And you keep tabs on where they're going. Like Srihari Nataraj, who's an Olympian now. I've known him since he was 13. So you see him, then you never really know he'll go that high to the Olympic, qualify for the Paris Olympics and then, whatever he has done. Sorry, Tokyo Olympics and now Paris he did after. So do that, build contact. Like we text each other every now and then about random crap, which is nothing to do with swimming or anything, but it creates that bond, right? You want him to do well. You know what he's gone through. So when you're writing about him, I know what he's come through. So for that, cover local sport, low level sport, so that you know where these guys are coming from, and also hold power to accountability. Like, it's easy now. I think Ashish Negi does a very good job. uh, Marcus also writes a lot. But Dhiman Sarkar, all these guys, veteran journalists, do a great job in that. But younger generation, this is where I come to the content creator side. Uh, Make content when you people are talking to you. You do your research and make sure that when they're telling you something, and I saw this a lot, people just saying things. And like the HMRC podcast has come, in England, where he's catching people lying. Ask the follow up. You make sure that you are well informed, and when somebody says something random, ask the follow up and see if they can, give you the right answer, because it's easy to say things and get away with it. And we need to start doing that, not just in sport in general, but that is something to do. And I hope you make responsible storytelling, nice, pretty storytelling like these guys have done with the TGIF. And I hope more people do that. Now, for a fan's perspective, uh, football without people or sport without people is useless. Like, it's like the tree that fell in the, if nobody was here there to hear the tree falling in the woods, right? That kind of situation. So people know this. Like ancient Romans had the gladiatorial games, which is for the people, right? Olympic games has this veneer of country versus country because they're trying to make it mean something. So similarly, we have to make it mean something, and you need to make people care. And if you can tell them, as creators or writers or journalists or any shape or form in the media, if you can tell them why it is important, how to identify with the game, find a reason why that social understanding and the social relationship within the clubs or the teams or the sport like badminton. I love badminton and tennis also. Why that matters, and then you can, uh, like, how we just walk and we do this. You've seen people just do that. That is how fundamental cricket is for us. Kids just doing this on the road, no ball, chuma, they're doing this, and they walk around doing this shot. So that is how we relate to cricket. Now, can you do that with all other sports, not just football? For that, you have to do a very good job to that. And we have also seen with what you showed in the Hyderabad episode. One of the reasons why I chose not to go to Hyderabad for the book is what they had, they don't have anymore. 50, 60 years ago, phenomenal football culture. Now it's falling away. Same with Kashmir, but now it's coming back a little. So you know how small things and small actions can cause this butterfly effect, which is going to change everything. So we know we have the evidence right in front of us. So everybody who is involved, fans, creators, administrators, just do. I'm not going to tell people in the administrative side to not be corrupt. I think that's wishful thinking. You do five things, three things you do for the game, two things you do for you. We'll give you that leeway. I think that three things is enough. So this is what, like, just please take care of our sport, not just football, any other sport. And we have we have India huge. We don't need all of us to play the same sport. Let's play everything,
Yeah.
find the silos, and let's be successful and enjoy. Right, like you see people crying after 75 years they qualified. What happened for the World Cup qualification? What it means to Ireland or Scotland and Cape Verde or whatever. I want to feel the same.
Yep.
And I will give you 25 years. Fine, to take 25 years, but I want to feel the same. So that's the dream that we have as a fan. And let's hope that everybody works towards that. And please do work towards that.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful way to conclude this conversation. And I
Ashish,
think for
just
me also,
I think just
yes,
before,
Johnson.
you sum it up, I have one question which I want to hear your thoughts on, which is, I think Sandeep touched upon, a very important part of the Hyderabad episode, which is what Ashish joined us specifically for. I think Sandeep, just like you, Arjun and I were very scared of, Hyderabad. Like, it can't be a sad story. It has to be a story of, obviously acknowledging and showcasing the past, but creating some sort of hope. I think like Soumya was a great find, in terms of a story that sort of is the forefront of the hope angle to it. But just from us giving you the brief, you being there on ground for 2 weeks, you hearing about everything that once was and now isn't, and meeting Soumya and the other people in and around Hyderabad to try and keep that hope alive. And what was your personal experience of a very challenging story, which I think I'm very proud of how you sort of helped us narrate.
Firstly, big shout out to Rabia Jafar, who has helped us immensely connecting, like just connecting with people in Hyderabad. And every time I needed to find someone, oh, how do I get in touch with Rahim Saab's daughter and grandson? Let me call Rabia. So it was that kind of thing where anyone I need to get in touch with in Hyderabad, I just give a call to Rabia and she just happens to know the person. So big shout out to Rabia. Coming to the Hyderabad episode, I think the title sums it up, right? Heritage, Hope, Hyderabad. So there was a lot of heritage. Now there's not a lot to do with football, but there is a lot of hope. Soumya is, I I remember while we were researching about Hyderabad, I was looking up on the internet like the current Hyderabadi players in the national team, and there was no one in the men's team, in the women's. There was no one in the
Is there
past
one
few
in
years.
ISL?
In
It's nobody in
no,
ISL.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So there was literally zero like senior players from Hyderabad who were playing at the top level. But then we found this one named Soumya Gugulot, and she's not from Hyderabad. She lives in Nizamabad, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nizamabad, which is like 3 hours away. But we had a discussion internally, and we thought that okay, no, we need this angle to the story. That this like adds a whole lot of hope to it. So we made the drive. We went 3 hours. We spent the day with Soumya at her home, talking to her, getting her story. We went to her ground where she practices. She also like spends a lot of time with young kids there, which is great to see. And the fact that she's like, I think she's been suffering with some injuries of late, but she's been doing really well, scoring left, right, center for club and country. It was a very nice story for me also to hear the fact that she's gone and done so much for the country, but she's still being somewhat being pressured to like get married, get a stable job. Tells you how skeptical people are about football in this country. Like someone who's literally playing for the national team, scoring goals, and yet you seem to have a discussion where should we do this as a career or should we like get a normal job and take care of the financial bit. So that was one. Apart from that, um, it was a lot of research, honestly, that just concluded with stories that I wouldn't have imagined. I didn't know like half of the things that we found out when we actually went on ground. And yeah, it was just a very nice and heartwarming experience for me. Those 2 weeks, I'm not ever going to forget the time that I spent. Big shout out to the crew as well, Pranay, Ishit, Aman. It was super fun shooting with them, and can't wait for season 2 to explore more such regions.
I just wanted to add one thing because of the hope you mentioned.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's easy in India, Indian football especially, to live in the past. Oh, we had this great. Like in Malayalam, we have a saying, "And Papa Anandarlu," which means my great grandfather had an elephant. It doesn't matter now. So
yeah,
that kind of, it's easy to do that, and it's easy to live in the past also. uh, the naysayers will often question, why are you writing about a sport that is on a downward trend?
Mm.
So it's important, I feel, and I might be absolutely wrong, but it's important for us who are trying to do something to have a message of hope, to show that
Mm.
despite all the problems, there is still a love and affection to the sport that is keeping it alive. And all it needs is, like Joker says, that little push for things to fall into place. So I think it's our duty to keep the hope alive. To that end, I chose to not go to Hyderabad because I couldn't fathom turning that kind of hope around. uh, Maybe in retrospect I should have or could have, or maybe I can do it in the next book or next edition or whatever. But you guys have done that. So kudos to you, which is very important. Hope, at the end of the day, hope is what that matters.
Yeah, yeah. Always a next time, and especially the country that we live in. Every region you go to is a new country in itself. There's so much new stuff to learn, stuff to like, take in and express yourself about. It's beautiful to see. Um, yeah, with that, I think we can all agree on the fact that Indian football lives far beyond and beneath the noise and the headlines that you see in the papers and the media right now that's surrounding Indian football. And there are people, there are places, there are memories that matter. So, to that note, go watch Traveler's Guide to Indian Football on our YouTube channel. It's free. Why would you not? And also go get your copy of Sacred Grounds. The link will be in the description. I would like to thank the both of you for giving us your time, for also doing your bit for the sport, for caring about the stories and the people that continue to keep the game alive in this country. Good luck to you both, and God bless Indian football.